Boy, oh boy, am I ever glad that I don't have to do any more Transport Canada written exams. I've written them all. Welcome to the superpilotish channel. My name's Graham Wilson, and today in my basement, I'll be giving you a few tips about writing Transport Canada written exams. And then, as a special request to one of my viewers, I'll be talking a little bit more about oxygen requirements for airplanes near the end. Okay. Yeah. So I was following somebody on the Twitter, the X, and someone who has just started off doing his instrument rating. Actually, there's a few guys there that I follow on that social media platform that they're kind of working on their instrument ratings. And one of the biggest things about that is you got to do this written exam, whether it's in the United States or Canada. I'll be talking about Canada today specifically, but I think some of the stuff might bleed over into the FAA requirements too. And yeah, so I figured, it's one of those things where this time of year everybody's all studying, and flying's really not all that great. It's super cold out these days, and so everyone's thinking about writing and studying, and this is a great time for it, so you can enjoy it in the summer. Okay, so I'm going to start off with some Transport Canada exam tips, written exam tips, and I'm going to bring out the old whiteboard. Here we go, Transport Canada TC written exam tips. And the number one tip is RTFQ squared. What does that mean? It means read the effing question twice. So basically, take your time and make sure you understand what they're going to be asking you, or what they're asking you on the written exam. It's real easy to just kind of rush through and say, oh yeah, I remember studying this. This is it. And then they're tricky at Transport Canada, that they'll know you're going to be looking for this number, or you're going to be looking for this, but we're going to tweak the question a little bit. So one of their favorite tricks is to do, which of the following is not something. So they'll throw a not in there, and you say, oh, I remember that number. Yeah, boom. And it's like, well, that's the one that's not is the other number. So like they'll kind of do little tricky things like that. Oh, hey, Vanessa Kitty. And yeah, so that's the one thing, RTFQ squared. And even though I think mathematically it should be RTFQ 2Q, but RTFQ squared kind of sticks better. Read that question twice. Really understand what they're asking. Okay, number two, because this is you're going to be studying for any exam that you're doing. It's whether your private exam, commercial exam, instrument rating exam, airline traffic, or ATPL, your what is it? Airline air transport pilot license exam. Who is responsible for everything? So they'll give you a question and they'll say like, okay, who's responsible for traffic separation? I'm going to write this down. Responsible. So generally everywhere, the pilot in command is responsible for just about everything. Who is responsible for traffic avoidance, for VFR stuff? Pilot in command. Who is responsible for the safe operation? Pilot in command. Who is responsible for the plane to be airworthy? Pilot in command. So they're responsible for everything. The only thing where the pilot in command is not responsible for it is and it makes sense, if you're flying IFR, you're in the middle of a cloud flying around legally, you're trained for it and everything, and at that point it's the air traffic controllers that are watching you on the radar. It's their responsibility to ensure that you're not flying into mountains and flying into other aircraft. So that's pretty much the only case that the pilot in command is not responsible. Otherwise, hey, there's one quick mark for you. Pilot in command is always responsible. And when in doubt, okay, here we go. And then they will always put questions that are close. You can always, there's like four, A, B, C, D, and you can kind of rule out one. Yeah, no problem. You can rule out another one. That doesn't look too good. And then they'll have two that are almost exactly the same, but different. So when in doubt, you select the safest answer. So if that has to do with altitudes or anything like that, it would be the higher number over the obstacle, or it would be the greater distance to this, or like whatever you think is safer. uh you know uh is it do you need enough fuel to go to your destination and land and taxi up to the gate, or another half hour or 45 minutes at night? So anyways, pick the safest answer if you're stuck. Okay, another thing too is let's check this out. Oh, Ranch is here too. Hi. Okay, we are gonna have. I always have a hard time spelling this word. Weird stuff. Okay. Now, when you're studying, study the weird stuff. So this is for Transport Canada. I'm not sure how it is in other countries, but they kind of expect you to know. You'll be expected to know the regular, I don't know, cruising altitudes, or something that's pretty simple. Yeah, that's okay, but they'll get you on the weird stuff, something that's kind of an exception to the rule in this case. And the Canadian air regulations are just, they're all set up so, oh yeah, here's a rule, but this is the exception. If this case happens, then it's this, unless this happens. And so that anything that's kind of weird like that, it's good to know that. Oh, hey, Harold, welcome to the show. Okay, and here we go. We're going to go for another one here. When in doubt. Okay. What type of answer do you answer? The longest answer. So, like, they'll know that you memorized, okay, this thing here, 10,000 feet. But it's like, oh, 10,000 feet. And that's your magic number you memorized in your head, 10,000 feet. And you're like, oh, yeah, 10,000 feet. Or for at least 30 minutes, or under 13,000. Like, so the weird one, pick your longest answer. And they do that too. Sometimes the longest answer is correct because like when I'm going to be talking about oxygen requirements later, I printed out some of the regulations, and the regulations are just very long. Like it's kind of legalese. So it's this, and that is the correct answer. Now it might, and they also like to do that where it's exactly copied and pasted right out of the regulations. So that way, if somebody wants to contest what their mark was, they could say, no, this is the correct answer. It is the more correct answer because this is exactly what's written down in the regulations. So that's why your longest answer is probably better than the short one, even though it has the same kind of info in it. Okay, another one too. It kind of ties into the longest answer. Okay, when you are studying, you must memorize your numbers. Okay, so if there's any number at all in the regulations, or like something like that, know that number, because that's another thing that where if you ever want to contest your exam, the regulators can say, no, here's the number that we're looking for. And you might say, yeah, but it was 18,000 feet, but it says, but the regulation says up to 18,000 feet, and then the next regulation says 18,000 feet and above. So it's 17,999. Once you hit 18,000, that's where the rule kicks in. So you're wrong. Like the numbers are there. And so that's why they like to put them in there. And if you know they're going to be there, start memorizing some numbers. I'll give you a couple tips on how to do that too. Okay, another thing too that could be handy for any test that you're writing anywhere is to, okay, say you're, and this is kind of common sense, and a lot of people, uh, a lot of people, they haven't written tests in a few years. Maybe they're out of school for a while, and they kind of the test writing skills are, it's something you write on top of in university or high school or something like that, and then you don't go there for 20 years. Your testing brains, it's all rusty. So these are skills that kind of have to come up. That's why I'm kind of reminding people. We will call this skip and return. So let's just say you got a question. There we go, skip and return. Skip your question. You're stuck on it. You're like, I don't know. It could be something. As soon as you find yourself spending just like, ooh, this is a tough one, man, I gotta think. Okay, as soon as you're doing that, skip it. You go knock off all the easiest ones, and then you go back, and then, because the worst thing, you don't want to run out of time, so don't dwell on one question going, okay, yeah, it took me 15 minutes to answer this question, and I missed out 15 questions at the end of the exam and failed. So you got to kind of keep things moving. And the thing is, like, if you're sitting there and you're pulling your hair out and you just don't know about something, the chances of you getting that right are kind of decreasing. So it's like, okay, skip it, return to it. And I don't know, what I've always done is, like, I bring a coin with me, and then I get it down to 2 at the very end, and I just go like, okay, it's up to fate. Heads, it's B. Tails, it's C. And I flip a coin. All right, there we go. So now I don't feel bad about myself, like, getting wrong on the question. It was fate because I had no clue. And there we go. And that's why I don't feel so bad if I fail exams. I've failed a few. I've written them all, passed them all, but I failed a few too. So, okay, now let's go over this again, and then I'll get into oxygen requirements for airplanes. And that's okay, I'll get to that later. Here we go. So our Transport Canada written exam tips. Some of these might apply in your country of flying, and some might not. But that's up to you to figure out. So number 1, read the effing question twice, RTFQ squared. Make sure you know what they're actually asking you. Don't forget about it. Look for that word not in there. So if they say, which one of the following is not this, they're trying to trick you, and they are. So who is responsible? Pilot in command is always responsible. Unless you're flying in the middle of the cloud, then how is a pilot in command going to be responsible for maintaining traffic avoidance in a cloud? But the pilot in command could be responsible for maintaining a speed or an altitude. Okay. That you're told as an instruction by ATC. Okay. The safest answer is probably the most correct answer. There might be a correct answer, but the most correct answer is your safest answer. Okay, because safety's cool. Anyways, what else we got here? Weird stuff. Study your weird stuff. That strange exception to the rule. And like, I don't know how many times I've gotten burned on that, where it's like, oh, I know everything here. Oh, but that one weird exception to the rule, that's that weird stuff. That's just, they won't ask that. Yes, they will. And you get it wrong, and then you fail. So don't forget the weird stuff. Okay, longest answer could be correct. It probably is. If you're stuck, take the longest one, because the regulations are written in legalese that so all their bases are covered, and it's like, okay, the correct answer is the longest one. Sometimes, most of the time, when in doubt, longest answer. Numbers, memorize all those numbers. Oh yeah, but it's hard to memorize numbers. Yes, that's why they make you memorize numbers. And then the way you can do that, I always have lots of these little cue cards lying around. I don't know if you can see that. Write the answer on the question on one side, answer on the other side. You got your lines, you got your no lines, and then you'll end up having a whole big stack of all these questions. And if you are doing that, you're memorizing all the numbers you're supposed to. What is the cruising altitude for this? Oh, it's that. Okay. Uh, um, write down even the easy stuff that you, oh, I know that. I always say write down everything on these little cards, because as you're going through, you won't feel so bad when you get it wrong. You'll be like, well, I got half of these right. There you go. And you'll keep, and motivate you to keep studying. So your numbers, memorize, memorize, memorize. And when you are writing the test, skip over the hard stuff, come back to it later. Don't waste your time. You don't want to run out of time at the end. So there's my, I guess, 7 Transport Canada exam tips. And that works for just about any exam for Transport Canada. All right, now we're going to get into oxygen requirements. If you are not interested, you may leave now, but I'll try to make it somewhat interesting for you. So, and the oxygen requirements, because someone asked me to cover that. And this comes into one of my Transport Canada exam written tips, where the weird stuff, oxygen requirements are all weird. And you will have to write down and memorize all these weird numbers and stuff like that. So if open your Bible of the Canadian Air Regulations to CARS 605.31 paragraph 1. So yeah. And the minister said, so yeah, there's some charts there. I printed it out and I kind of highlighted where the charts are, and it's in pink. I'm still dealing with this bizarre highlighter. I'm thinking about throwing it out, because it's like, if I store it like this, I get a pink disaster all over my hands. If I store it like this, it's too dry. I don't know. Maybe maybe I should just keep it sideways. Who knows? Actually, that might work. But then I have this old plastic cup I keep it in over here. Anyways, yeah, so I do have, there's this weird, like, just as an example from the requirements, you would think if you're flying around and there's not a lot of oxygen up in the air, that everybody needs oxygen just in case, right? Not necessarily. So this is a weird one here. So if you are flying, if your entire period of flight exceeding 30 minutes at cabin pressure altitudes above 10,000 feet, so that means above 10,000 feet, that means 10,001 feet above sea level, but not exceeding 13,000 feet, that means up to 12,999. So like, it's weird. So you're flying above 10,000 feet for 30 minutes, and you're for over 30 minutes. So that's where they would get you to. So it's exceeding 30 minutes. So can you fly for 30 minutes there and not have oxygen? Yes, but once you are exceeding 30 minutes, so that means 30 minutes and 1 second, now you're illegal. But you need oxygen for all crew members. Okay, so that's pilot, co-pilot, flight attendants too. Has to be available, and 10% of passengers. So if you're flying up over that, you only need like oxygen for 10% of the people hanging out in the back. That's kind of weird. And that would be, but this is also in a non-transport category airplane. So that's not on your big jets. It's in your little airplanes. So it gets all weird. And the thing is, when you are on your big jet, then you do need all that oxygen. And that's where finding out memorizing exactly on your little cue cards, every little scenario, you got to do it. And so it's weird, but you can have 10% of your passengers have the oxygen. So who cares if they pass out, right? But if you only have 2 passengers back there, you got to have oxygen for at least 1, because 10% of 2 is whatever, 0.2 people oxygen. No, you got to have 1. So that's the weird one there. So that is so weird and messed up. 10%, no less than 1, 10,000 feet, 13,000 feet. That would definitely be on a Transport Canada exam, because it's all messed up. So you got to know that weird messed up stuff. Now, you normally, like anything, I would be like, say I'm going to be flying myself, I remember as a pilot, it's like, okay, 10,000 feet, yeah, you can pop up over that for half an hour and then pop back down, but don't go over 13,000. Okay, I can remember that, but because I'm usually flying around, that's the type of flying that I do is with a crew member. Technically, if you have a student, your student is not a passenger, your student is crew. So we got to have oxygen if we're going over there for 30 minutes or over 13,000 feet, all this stuff. I know that for me, but the passengers, I got to review that every once in a while. So that's one of the things that you memorize all the stuff and like, and then you forget it right after the written exam. But you do, because you have to memorize all this weird stuff at some point. The idea is that you know how to look up the information you need in the future. Like I would say, okay, if I was going to be flying some, I don't know, some kind of plane somewhere and there's some passengers and it's a pressurized airplane, it's like, okay, I've never actually been pilot in command, but pressurized airplane before, but legally I could fly it. So I better know the oxygen requirements for a pressurized airplane. And then I'd go look it up. And I'd probably do, get some kind of checkout flight where I would know about the pressurization. And so about oxygen requirements for airplanes, it's complicated. Oh, and there's another one here too, studying for your test. There's in the chart of Canada Air Regulation 605.31, there's a chart there. There's also these little notes that I highlighted. If you can see that, I printed out. So we got note 1, note 2, note 3. That stuff, those weird notes, that's what's going to be on your exam. So you don't skip over the weirdness. And it's just, yeah, there's no getting around the oxygen requirements for a commercial pilot's license, knowing all that stuff. I remember studying my butt off for that, and that was a hard exam. But it takes a while, but you got to know it. So know those numbers. Here's another one too, that let's just say, and I always thought this was just kind of interesting. So like when the guys, if you're flying, if you're operating, you got your big jet. Most big jets, they're flying around 30,000 feet, 35,000 feet, but some of them go up to a lot higher. Some of the business jets can get up to 50,000 feet. I think a Citation 10 can get up there, 45, 50,000 feet. And like the Concorde, when it was flying, I think it was up around 60,000, the Concorde. So if you are operating above flight level 410, which means 41,000 feet above sea level, you have to have the pilot at the flight controls. So your pilot flying, your pilot in command, must have an oxygen mask on the whole time. So the people in the back, they could be hanging around on the Concorde, sipping martinis with the Queen or whatever, with the Prince or something like that. Mick Jagger's hanging out and having a beer with Princess Diana back in the day or something. But so they could be doing that, having all the good fun in the back. But there is a pilot up front with an actual oxygen mask on, because if you ever depressurized at 60,000 feet, it's like all the oxygen would just get forced right out of your lungs, and there you go. You only got a few seconds of consciousness there. So, and there we go. So, and then there was another one here too about, and I was kind of interesting in these notes. There was that the Alaskan airplane that lost the door plug. So that was a rapid depressurization. And then, so I was thinking, how fast do they get down? Because they were at 16,000 feet. Once you get under 10,000, you're cool. People don't need oxygen and you can go fly back to wherever you got to fly back to. But to get down to that level, it's like, you can't just jam the nose down and overspeed the airplane and get down there. Like, what is the rate of descent that you should be doing? And it's going to be messing with the passenger's ears and your ears as the pilot too, with all that pressure difference. So that actually was answered in one of these notes that I was checking out today. So the main thing is you got to get down wherever you are descending from. In the case of a rapid descent, you got to be able to get down to 10,000 feet. You got to get down to 10,000 feet in 10 minutes. So that makes sense, because I mean, when you're up at altitude and all of a sudden there's a depressurization, it's not like there's no oxygen at all and you instantly all pass out, fly out, fly out a window. It's not like the movies. But after 10 minutes, then you're going to start getting the effects of hypoxia there. And then I was thinking about that too. When those oxygen masks, when they come down, and you say you got a kid, they always say put one on yourself and then put the mask on your kid that you're watching over or something like that. Now, if any parents are out there and they're putting the oxygen, don't worry about it too much. If that comes down and you got to put on your oxygen mask first and then the child. So you see, like the whole idea is like, you're not going to instantly pass out. Your kid's not going to have brain damage right away or anything. What happens is when you start losing a little bit of oxygen to your brain, a couple of the main symptoms of that is euphoria. So you're going to be feeling, hey, this is cool. It could possibly happen that if you don't put on your mask right away, you could start getting hypoxic and go like, wow, that's such a cool color of yellow on that mask. That's neat. Ooh, I can feel it in my hair. And like, you just think that's totally normal. Ha ha ha. So, and yeah, so your rational thought might be going, your fine motor skills might be going a little bit there too. So maybe you might not be able to put the elastic over your head or something like that. You'll just think everything's cool, man, but you're losing oxygen to your head. So, and that the effects of that too, could be exacerbated by, did you have a couple drinks to calm your nerves before getting on the plane? Well, now you're feeling goofy, like even faster, or you pop a little nerve, I don't know, some kind of happy pill to keep you chilled out on the plane. That'll affect your thinking quicker. That'll affect you. You'll be getting hypoxic hypoxia at that point, in addition to your regular hypoxia. So that's a consideration. So don't worry about it. Get the mask on yourself, and then if the kid's like takes a while to get the kid to have the mask on, the kid's just going to get a little sleepy, or the kid's going to be, ha ha ha, mom, look at those things falling out of the ceiling. The kid's going to be fine for a while, and then you put the mask on the kid and it goes back to normal. So why do my fingers feel funny, mom? You might hear something like that. They're not going to be freaking out and dying or having brain damage. That takes a while for it to kick in. And in the meantime, the pilots are doing their descent within 10 minutes to get down to 10,000 feet. Everything's cool. So don't worry about it. When they say put on your oxygen mask first and then the kid, yeah, there's no rush. So kid might even have a good time feeling goofy. So, okay, so that is about it for the oxygen requirements. I really didn't want to get into reading all of them for my special requests, but know the weird stuff for your oxygen requirements for your written exam. And if you are flying, and then there's also things here that you have to have enough oxygen on board to get to your destination and all this other stuff. The airlines, they all got that all taken care of. The pilots are all trained for that. The crew are all trained for that. And it's actually surprisingly pretty safe. The only thing is you probably will feel a little bit of pressure and pain in your ears, but it's better than getting sucked out a window. So, even though that doesn't happen. Okay. So it's not the end of the world that we got to descend because don't have enough oxygen up here. Yeah, there is once we get down there and you get your mask on. So, okay, let's do this here. I'm just going to go and take a look at some questions. I hope that answered some. I hope that was helpful for some of you guys out there. And, oh, okay. Here we go. I have the question here from Wrench. So, Wrench took a junior college IFR course 20 years ago, passed the written, but was about VOR approaches, holds, etc. With everything GPS. Is it very different now? The amount of GPS that has been added to the instrument rating stuff. It's significantly different than 20 years ago. And like even there, they even had like NDB holds. Like the thing is, all that stuff from 20 years ago is still here, but I think they got rid of more of the VOR stuff because they're getting kind of decommissioned around here in Canada, anyways, and they're less in use in the States. And NDB stuff, non-directional beacons, like okay, that stuff was still around a bit more. Like you do have to know that because those navigation aids are still around, but they will emphasize a lot more on GPS. What type of GPS can you do an approach if you or how many satellites are required for RAIM, stuff like that. So and the thing is, most people. I was talking to an air traffic controller a few years ago when they were talking about decommissioning a VOR around Windsor, and he was saying that basically, out of all the airplanes flying around doing IFR, 100% of them are doing GPS. They're flying on GPS. The only way that they're not flying on GPS is that the GPS is not serviceable, and then they're flying around they're just getting vectored around by air traffic control. Okay, fly a heading of east. All right, climb and maintain 12,000. All right, So yeah, the GPS stuff is it's a lot more emphasized for all your instrument flying there, and they just kind of toned back on the older navigation aids. So that was a good question. Good question, Wrench. Thanks. Here we go. So Harold was talking about history teacher said, when in doubt, answer C. That used to be the case in for Transport Canada, but what they do now, and I was thinking about putting that on my whiteboard there, Harold, but that's not the case anymore, because now whenever these tests are printed out, or it's done on a computer now, and the computer will automatically jumble up the answers, so it won't be C. But before, yes, the C did have a disproportionate amount of correct answers. Your high school history teacher was correct, and it's kind of like a natural tendency for for teachers that are making up the exam question. They don't want to, okay, we can't just give every one as the first one, and we can't do every one as the last one. So this is the third one. It's in the middle there somewhere. So yeah. Although I know I know a guy, he was a he was a grade school teacher, and he did a multiple choice exam, and he made all of the correct answers A, and so everybody in the class was like, "Oh, okay, A, yeah, they did it." And the thing is, the Asian kids in the class were just freaking out because they'd never seen it before, and like he said, like they were practically crying because it was like, this can't be right. So he did that once as an experiment, but he freaked out the students, so he stopped doing it. So that was a funny story. I remember. I think, was he a grade 6 teacher? I think it was about the 6th grade. So. And I would be questioning that too myself if everything was A. Well, that'd be weird. That would be weird. Okay. What altitude do old people and smokers start to actually die? That depends a lot, actually. I don't know. I don't even really want to know. But well, you're gonna pass out before you die anyhow. But that has happened for some pilots. Did that? I can think of a couple where they're on autopilot and the oxygen system malfunctions and they pass out, then they die, and then the plane runs out of gas and crashes. So that can happen. I don't know what altitude. It's kind of it's a combination of your altitude and how long you're there for. So and I don't know how that would be. But it'd be a peaceful way to go. You'd just be kind of all euphoric, and then you'd just kind of nod off, and that's it. I knew a pilot who shall not be named, and it wasn't me, but up north, if the babies were screaming in the back, and it was an unpressurized airplane, they kind of go up a bit higher, and the babies would fall asleep. So babies will get knocked out first before adults will. And it's like, babies are back to sleep. All right, let's go back down again, and they just stay asleep and they wake up when they land. So it's a quick way of knocking out the kid. So I don't know how ethical that is. I probably wouldn't do it myself, but I don't know. I kind of told him, dude, it's like, dude, that could be dangerous. Nah, they just fall asleep. Okay. Okay. Da-da-da. Who's saying this here? This camera is better than yesterday, and Harold also agrees. The toolbox is back. Yeah, so this will be my go-to camera because it's easier to use my whiteboard because it has a wider lens. And but that other camera that I had is just off my phone, so that's going to be kind of emergency mobile use if I want to do a video or something like that, and or brag about being on vacation or something. Hey guys, here I am on vacation. Look at me ziplining. And oh, here we go. Rolly Knievel's in here too. Hello, Rolly. Welcome. And none of your business. Hello. Okay, what else we got here? Okay. So, yeah, that is about it for today's show. Okay, Rolly was saying when he was a baby on a plane, his mom sat next to a doctor. He gave her a pill for me to go to sleep. It woke me up. Who knows what kind of pills you're going to be taking? I'm a big believer that if you are on a plane, you don't get all wasted and don't start popping pills, because I'm just thinking, like, if there's a case of an emergency and you got to evacuate the airplane and you're stumbling over people because you're all doped up or whatever, that's not the safest way to go. But I must say, I do enjoy having a beer or a glass of wine on a trip, and I'm coming back home and maybe I don't have to drive from the airport. Like, that's pretty cool. It's I'm just relaxing like the way they used to do it. So, all right. So there you go. People talking about vacations in here too. Okay, so that is about it. I hope that answered a little bit of questions and gave a little bit of tips for a few people. Today is Wednesday, so I will be back on Friday because I do this Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon Eastern. And Friday will be an experiment with the camera that Wrench doesn't like, because I want to see if I can get that camera to do this type of, okay, Harold's going on vacation. See how I pop those comments up. So I want to be able to do that on my camera now. So that's it. It's going to be my experiment for Friday. I don't know what the topic will be. I'm always open to taking topics. Pretty much no matter what you tell me, I'll do it, something on it. And yeah, email me, superpilotish@gmail.com. And okay, so I'll be back on Friday because I do this Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon Eastern, and we will shut her down. So thank you for watching. Bye.